Hey community, welcome back. And if this is your first time here, I'm Dr. Blaire, a doc in clinical psychology, and on this channel we discuss psychology, inspiration, social justice, and all topics in between. First things first, hit that subscribe and bell button. You know I want to see you back next week, and of course, stay tuned because we're going to jump into and continue this conversation around they cloned Tyrone. Keep watching. All right, so heads up, I'm going to have to break this conversation up into multiple parts. So this is part whatever is there in the description box, but we recorded it all in one setting. So it's up to you to make sure that you watch it in order. With that being said, keep watching.
All of this is under the church. And I was like, that's a lot to unpack. So we can go there now, but
yeah, let's go there. We're here now.
Under the church, like what?
So I said that it grieves me. Because part of this is true. There are so many parts of this that is true. So they brought up the juice, because the grape juice for the communion. They was like, oh, it's in the juice, right? Which goes to the saying that we say of people, drinking the juice or getting drugged by the juice. There are multiple stories. Yeah, it's a lot of stories of church congregations that were drugged or influenced, and they used the juice or the communion juice to do it. So not just that, drinking the juice, because that's where that saying comes from, but also that they're kind of eating up the hype of the church. So this is the part that grieves me about that, because y'all already know I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, and I feel like things, when we say stuff like that, which can be true, if we don't clean that up as a church, it's an attack on God's kingdom, and that I don't play about. Now, outside of that, on the other part, there are elements to the truth around that, where Felicia, you brought up, people don't question the church, or they feel like because it's attached to God, you are not supposed to question it. But that's not always true. There are things that do happen in the church that people do under the guise of the church, under the protection of the church, and they're using God's name in vain to do things that are corrupt and to do things that are perverse. Now, here's the part that just really blew me, because not only did they go into the service and they're having the service, but then they start praising to Bag That Thing Up by Juvenile, which we all like the song, right? It's a classic at this point. We all just watched the tiny desk with him singing it. But outside of that, everybody in the church is just dancing, right? Nobody's questioning it, but then showing how even that song is controlling the congregation, that something that is not supposed to be played in a sanctuary is being praised, and yet people are up and dancing and praising as if it is a worship song.
But then, as you see, that's also a moment that I wanted to bring up that Felicia brought up, because that's also a moment where the music went distorted. In that moment,
and perverted.
When it got perverted. And not only that, it started out as praise, but then as the music shifted, you saw how they started dancing more and more like, we at a club, we backing that thing up, and again, like you said, nobody's aware, nobody's noticing that this is not something we should be doing,
right?
Everybody just has a veil over their eyes, and then not speaking to the point of that the church is supposed to be where everybody is woke. The church is supposed to be the place where this stuff doesn't penetrate.
Yeah.
And so to get to the point where not only has it penetrated the church, it's literally the foundation of the church, because it's underneath it. Like, this is what's holding up this establishment right now. That's deep.
I'm about to log off. Goodness, that's deep.
That's deep.
It is so deep. But here, let's talk about this historical portion to it. The Black community, there are two parts to this. There is a school of thought that Black people were introduced to Christianity during slavery, which I don't believe. I don't know why people feel like they didn't know Jesus in Africa. Well, I mean, Jesus did touch feet down in Africa. But anywho's, the apostles were there, but we're not going to talk about that right now. But there's one school of thought that believe that Black people were introduced to Christianity in the U.S. During slavery. Another portion believes what I believe. Now, for those who believe the former, it is interesting to me, because if this is the case, let's go with the school of thought then as we know, Christianity during slavery was used to control people, and they took the word and manipulated the word and used it to control and manipulate people, even though they took the scripture out of context. This is not what it was meaning. They used the scripture around slaves obey your masters, right? I'm gonna need folks to read the whole chapter. We're not gonna get into a Bible study today. If y'all want it, we can have it another time. Let me know. But excuse me, when we look closely at this part, I think it's so interesting because people are programmed, even during the music, programmed to the music, bag the thing up that's playing, programmed to get up and dance in a certain way. We see this happening multiple times throughout the movie, but also programmed to not say anything, programmed to be silenced, just like the women, as we talked about earlier, throughout the entire movie, were programmed to be silent, programmed to not to be unimportant, programmed for nobody to pay attention to, programmed to not have a voice, programmed to be overlooked. That even in the church there are certain portions of influence that have come from society and come from control and manipulation, or this experiment, or even things that have happened in actual life that mimic what we're seeing in this movie, all programming. And so then it frustrates me. I got to go back to what grieves me. It frustrates me even more so because then the church gets the blame for things that actually isn't the church. It's not God, has nothing to do with God. God did not ordain these things. He did not release these things. None of this has to do with God, but instead, God gets the blame for things that actually come from man and man's perversion, which is actually coming from Satan. I'm just saying.
Yep.
So I clenched my heart when I saw that, and then saw the portal that we just talked about, which was underneath the church, in the church being utilized as an opening, a doorway, for all of the mess that was happening underneath to go under a guise and to be protected from, using the church as a protection, as a cushion, because no one's going to question the God that is attached to it, yet the God did not say anything about this being okay.
Right.
But if you let's dig a little bit deeper in that, because when Fontaine was trying to look for the place to swipe the card, he looked up at the picture of Jesus, and you point the way. And that's what he said. He was saying that, and then you see him pointing, and that's how he found the box. It's wild to think that, people connect the dots the way they want to connect it, and they'll, like you said, blame the church for any and all things that could be wrong, right? And so for them to intentionally bring a photo, a painting, whatever it was, and have it be you point the way, I think they were basically saying that people blame the church for a lot of things that are happening in the world in general, because especially within our community, because we tend to have such a heavier expression of our religious beliefs, whatever they may be, however extreme or not extreme, whatever they may be. We tend to be more boisterous about it than any other community. Sometimes, not all the time, but for them to intentionally, well, at least I speculate that they intentionally did that. I think they understood that we see it too. But everybody outside of the community don't see that. But we see it too. That's what's wild. I was like, oh man, this is getting
But you know what I love about all of this, also don't like at the same time, I love that there's exposure that's being brought to it. My hope is that those who are a part of the church, those who are representing God's kingdom, takes that power, that authority that he has given us, and stand up and say something, do something about it. Again, going back to all of these silent conversations, when we recognize something, we are aware, but we don't do anything about it. And so y'all know here on this channel, I always talk about, well, what are you gonna do about it? What's the action plan? Because we can talk about it all day long. That's cute, that's dandy, but what are we gonna do? What's your movement here? And so coming even for the church to take a stand that things that are not of God, that things that are not Bible, that God did not say anything about, that has nothing to do with him, no longer allow people to place blame where it is not due. No longer allow for perversion to continue to be at the basis or to be covered by the church. No longer allow for our people to even be in a position where they are drinking the juice. If you are aware, then you need to be doing something about it and helping that awareness to be contagious, instead of sitting and wallowing in the fact that you know something that someone else doesn't know.
Come on.
At that point, it's on you.
Yeah. I think that I have 2 points. One being that recently, may have been today, I was scrolling, and you know how you come across those videos that are showing something that's happening in somebody's church, whether it be mega church, storefront, whatever, and it's showing whether it's somebody doing something very foolish of like blowing people and they falling out, or throwing pillows at people out the pulpit, just all type of just foolishness that we see a lot nowadays because everybody is streaming their services all of a sudden. And it made me think, like, I had a thought of like church just needs to go back to not streaming, like just let the church service be the church service, like forget all this online stuff, because I see it so much, like almost every other video is, almost like people making a mockery.
Yeah, they are.
Of church, and it makes the world not take us seriously at all because they see all of these antics and all of these things that people are doing that honestly really don't have the Spirit of God on it. And it, again, like this service that we just saw in they call Tyrone, it grieved me because I'm like, churches just need to stop doing this. But then the Holy Spirit checked me and was like, well, what if God is trying to expose these things? Because if they continue to do this in silence, again, you talked about people not speaking up. People are in church services every week, multiple days a week sometimes. And they're going through the motions, just like them people at that church was, just going through the motions, doing what's being presented to them. But then it takes now everybody streaming services for other people to see it and be like, hey, that's good. Get them out of there. That is not God.
Yeah.
And it takes that for sometimes, maybe for some people who are going to these places to be like, oh, maybe this isn't, or maybe I do need to study, or maybe I do need to question why this is going on. So it's a level of, sometimes we get afraid of exposure, but sometimes that exposure comes to save us.
That's good.
So it just made me think, like, don't hate this part of it. Because again, in that people are kind of being woken up out of their state. The second part was in connection to that, talking about things that grieve me with this whole notion of this church thing. I was talking to somebody earlier today, and I've been through certain things in my own life, of course, being born and raised in the church, where people in the church have hurt me and I felt like did me dirty or wronged me or whatever the case may be. And the person I talked to was like, oh yeah, like church hurt. And I was like, I don't like that phrase. And I had to like really explain myself. And it's not the fact that I'm trying to avoid, maybe, yes, I was hurt by people in the church, but the phrase has been used to tarnish the church so much that it's like, that's not, because I love the church, even though the people that hurt me, I still love them as well. But I love the church as a unit. I'm a part of the church. I'm a part of the bride of Christ. So I don't want to use something that, of course, people in their hurt, like Fontaine, have come and tried to use this term because it came from actual pain. But now we're using this to say, oh, this is why I'm not a part of this. This is why I don't go to church. This is why I don't fool with church people. This is why I don't, because everybody's hypocritical, and it becomes a generalized statement for what really is people starting to hate the church. And how can we hate what God has ordained? We can't. And so I just felt like those two things, because in that scene alone, like you said, it grieved both of us. But you don't want to lose sight of, or don't, like you said, you want to make sure that we take up for the church and what the actual purpose is, and that we're exposing people to, this is not what God has ordained church to be.
Right. Yeah.
And that these are human errors. No, it's okay. Human errors. Like, we are all human. We're humans inside of a church, inside of an establishment that God built. And our goal is to model Christ, but we are still human. Exactly.
Right. And so this goes to this element of that you kind of talked about, the fact that people are not saying anything or don't recognize it speaks to this overarching thing that we see that is around desensitization. And so one of the first examples of it that I saw was around violence. When Fontaine decides that he's going to run over whatever his name was and breaks his leg, Junebug's response was, "Is he dead?" And goes back to drinking his drink. Now, let me just
that
tell you,
man, he heard this man crazy.
the whole movie is hilarious, but when you think about it, there are so many areas throughout the entire movie where violence is just kind of like, oh, okay, because everybody's response to this guy getting ran over, nobody ran over to help. Fontaine gets out of the car and is like, oh, you know, I want my money, or stop selling drugs over here. This is my block, da 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 da. And then leaves the guy there, and the guy's like, He calls his boss. His boss is like, all right, I'm on my way, while he's shaving his face, just very lackadaisy about it. And then later on, when they go to kill Fontaine, this is the first time that Fontaine is getting killed, or that we see Fontaine get killed. They go kill him. Notice this guy still is in pain. He's in the car with, I think his name was Isaac, and he says, oh man, I need some Tylenol or something like that. And Isaac's response is like, boy, like pretty much like, suck it up. Now this man's leg is broke and he's hobbling on a broke leg. This is again the message that we send Black men, that when you are in pain, suck it up, deal with it, still do what you need to do, because the only solution to your problem is death. The only solution to your problem is to kill. If you look at it, we saw the same thing, the same message replicated, even with Yo-Yo and Slick Charles, when they were talking to Fontaine in the car, and Slick Charles is trying to prove to Fontaine that actually you were dead, and I don't know how you're back here again. Talk to Yo-Yo, she saw it, and Yo-Yo's like, yeah, I saw you. You were shot up. And then she said, I thought it was Fontaine solving my problem, and looks back at Slick Charles. It also happens again when Slick Charles goes out to look at the first dead Fontaine, and he's thinking, I won't have that problem again, even though he doesn't say it. He's thinking that this is a solution to my problem. I won't have to pay Fontaine any of the money that I owe him anymore. So why is it that a solution for our people in this movie to a problem is to kill the other person?
Yeah.
That's not a solution. When you look at that spiritually, death is not a solution. Death is not a solution. Life is, right? Because God represents life. Christ represents life. Christ represents love and light and all those things. And the enemy represents darkness. So, but in this movie, it's showing that we have been programmed to think that in order for me to solve this problem, you have to die. But the only time we see dying of self is at the end of the movie, when Clone Fontaine ends up having Chester, which is another clone of the same Fontaine, kill the original Fontaine, who was the pained Fontaine, the unhealed Fontaine, to stop this cycle of hurting the collective. Woo!
That alone needs a whole breakdown.
My goodness.
Okay,
wait, hold on. Before the plot thickens, let's break that down. Even scripture, right? Because this is why we have to die to self every day. This is why we have to kill those parts. This is actually something okay to kill. Kill those parts of ourselves. Thank you for wearing a shirt. Die daily, live eternally. This is why Galatians 2 verse 20. This is why it's important that we have to kill the fleshly parts of ourselves, those parts of ourselves that are not godly, those parts of ourselves that don't represent Christ, that doesn't represent his word, because we end up putting ourselves in a position where we are not only destructive toward ourselves, but also others.
Yes.
Woo!
And literally the only way to get rid of that is to kill that part of yourself. Literally, like giving over that part of yourself.
Yes. Let it go. The killing is letting it go. It means that I will no longer take you into the future with me. You no longer will be a part of me. You are no longer a representation of me. I am now transformed, that I'm now aware. I am now awoke. I now understand that all of these elements are going on in my community. I now know I need to tell people. I now know I need to stand up. I now know I need to revolt. I need to stand in unity. I need to be with my community. I now know all these things. And I also am demonstrating it in what I do. And I know if I keep holding on to this old part of myself that is pain, that is unhealed, that has not transformed, if I don't die, if I don't kill that part of myself, then I will continue to be hurt and harmful toward myself and others. So I have to let that go. It can't go to my future. It can't go moving forward anymore, or else this cycle continues. So I got to stop. In order to stop this whole cycle, I got to do something about myself, which is my whole point at the end of these videos when I say, if I'm great and you're great, then we're a great community. We got to do our own self-work.
Absolutely.
Woo. Thank y'all. They clone Tyrone. Thank you for this. Somebody gets it.
Yeah,
Somebody gets it.
Good. That's good, man.
My goodness, y'all. And it's still so much even there that we can break out. But I want to quickly touch on this "you lose" lotto card, right? Felicia, you already brought it up, because every time he scratched it off, you lose. But there are so many things in this movie that is being reinforced. This is a term that we use in psychology, reinforcement. It is to increase the likelihood that someone would do a behavior again. So we do positive reinforcement, we do negative reinforcement. There are different types of reinforcement to essentially increase the chances that it will be replicated, that you can continue doing the same thing. Well, to continue to keep Frog drunk, we're going to reinforce it by continuing to give him alcohol. Right? Okay. To continue, people, the girl who was at the salon in the chair, who's overworked and feel like she's doing things, and now is starting to feel like I should change. Well, the reinforcement was, well, let's influence her and put this chemical or these drugs in her hair so it seeps through her scalp, right? Another reinforcement that we see throughout the movie, let me take a quick glance at my notes to make sure I don't forget something. Okay, another reinforcement is around women are not important, which we talked about several times today. That black men cannot protect black women, but that black women will defend black men. But then it comes around to the "you lose" specifically was shown to the black man over and over and over again. And then finally at the end, Fontaine, instead of scratching off one circle, decides, wait, hold on, why am I always losing? Even Frog says, you always lose. It's a reinforcement that you cannot win in life, that things won't change for you. So it keeps you in this cycle. It keeps you bound in this place of why change? Because if you do change, nothing will come of it. So you lose.
Yeah.
So now he has this loser mentality up until he starts to gain some awareness and things start to click for him. So this reinforcement, the power of reinforcement, is something also to be very mindful of. I know that this has been a very long conversation. I'm gonna have to break this up. I don't know how long we've been sitting here having the conversation. I think we can talk more, but I want to end this conversation talking about this revolt and the power that came in them all unifying with one another, which I feel like kind of starts. It's toward the end, and I don't have like a time marker to tell you all, but it is toward the end of the movie when the entire community decides to kind of link together, join forces, join resources, and what is happening in that particular city. And this is where, you know, the big turn in the movie happens. And so I just want to talk about some of the core takeaways that you all saw in that portion of the movie.
I think the first thing that comes to mind is that initial conversation between Slick Charles and Fontaine of like how they're going to get Yo-Yo back. And I can't remember verbatim what Slick Charles said, but he said something to the effect of, they'll never look past what they already think they know, pretty much. So it's like, we're gonna keep these routines going because they ain't gonna look past it because this is what we always do, and they expect us to do what we've always done. So we're gonna do it that way so that they don't get suspicious because they knew that they were being watched. So I thought that part was so profound. And so then that's when we go into seeing like him talking to, what was her name again? The other
Biddy.
Him talking to Biddy, and then her doing her part, but pretending like she's, you know, doing her job. But she's actually, you know, giving information and exchanging information for each side. And I think it was amazing showing how, like you just talked about, the violence and them killing each other and things like that, and how at the beginning of this movie it started with Isaac and the other dude killing Fontaine, but then at the end coming through for him. And even themselves, but them being like the solution to help this problem, to end this problem.
Because why? Death is not the solution here.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
And even when they shot him to kill him, but it didn't. That really wasn't. It wasn't the solution. Yeah. Them thinking that, okay, yeah, we just gonna stick all of these people in here and they're gonna kill each other, which was an expectation. Like that was such an expectation that it was just like, oh, wrap him up, exchange it for the other one. I'm like, did they even check and make sure? They didn't even check to make sure the man was dead for real. That they're so used to the cycle. Even the programmers are so used to the cycle that they didn't even check to make sure that the other Fontaine was dead.
Mm-hmm.
Just throw them in a body bag.
Yep.
Load up the next one.
No, because they were
But can
they
I
were
tell you
controlled
something?
too. Go ahead.
I guarantee you didn't see.
Go for it.
Yo-Yo is the one that came up with that plan, because she put the tape in the, she's like, I'm gonna disappear. Nobody, she said it real slick, real slick. I'm gonna disappear. Nobody's gonna see me around. She had on her trench coat, real.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Uh-huh.
That was the start of that plan. So it was like we've been saying before, everything you see
It
on the
was a
surface,
foreshadow, yeah.
everything you don't see on the surface. So they hashed this plan out well before, but because they knew they were being watched, they had to make it seem like they were all devising it separately, right? They had to make it seem like they weren't all in it together, but they were all in it together for a very long time. And then
this is why we got to go back and watch it multiple times.
Okay, right.
I caught that real early, because I like murder mystery movies and things, and sometimes they put that stuff in there, you never pay attention to it. But I caught that real early. She said, "I'm gonna disappear," and she said it just like, "I'm gonna disappear." Why you whisper that?
She knew they was gonna come and get her.
This big plan comes about, and they got Isaac and his crew, and then you got Fontaine's crew over here, and then you got the hoes over here helping out too, and you got the pimps that came out of nowhere. They devised that plan real early, and Yo-Yo was the one behind it, and she put herself in harm's way, because that's what Black women do. She put her in harm's way in order to bring the whole entire community together to get them out of the despair that they were in.
Man, I just want to bring up this one thing that I just thought about too. And I thought about it earlier when Dr. Blaire was talking about the girl with the perm and how she kind of, once she got the perm, it relaxed her inhibitions, I guess. I don't know. But how that was the same tactic they used on Yo-Yo to shut her up. It was like, oh, so again, talking about women's role in the community and how that hope plays a role, that ambition, that drive to push our families forward. And how they took that away from the old girl who was in the salon, and how Buddy, the little fixer guy, is in there talking to Yo-Yo, and he's reading out her plans. Oh, this is good. Too bad ain't nobody gonna know about it. Oh, this is wonderful. You put all of this together. If I had known that you could do all of this, maybe I could have had different plans for you. Too bad won't nobody see it. Goes to put the relaxer in her hair to kill all of her inhibitions, to kill her ambition, to kill her hope, and all of those things. It was like, I'm like, oh.
But wait. Why did it work?
Wait, there's more.
What did she have on? She had on a wig.
Okay.
But what does that mean?
What is
Let's put that in plain language. When you have protection over your mind,
come on,
these things are not able to penetrate your mind and have influence. She had a layer of protection. Now, granted, it was a wig that was on top of her real hair, and so they weren't actually relaxing her real hair. But the symbolism of having a helmet of protection. That's why you got to put on the full armor of God, saints.
Wait, a helmet of what?
Protection.
Salvation.
Sorry. Salvation. Thank you.
But even that,
a helmet of salvation. Yes.
A helmet to be saved. It literally saved her.
Woo! Selah again. How many Selahs did we have? We should have kept count. If I could edit this really good, I would put like a little ting every single time we had a Selah moment. So y'all do it for yourselves. Ting. Goodness. My goodness. Now, you brought up the fact that they had a plan. They had a clear plan and they followed it through. My thing that stands out is that they were unified and they protected each other. They protected each other in their unity. And I loved to see, and this is something that I feel like is also prophetic. There is going to be a need for a revolution, for a revolt to come up in our future. We've seen it happen before. But here's the thing. When they revolted in one city, we already talked about this a little bit earlier, that it exposed a lot of the corruption that was going on. And so we have a lot of questions. Come on, y'all, with this part 2 for us to see what's going to happen in these other cities. What's going to happen with the rest of these clones? What's the next, right? But revolution, awareness, all of this, it's contagious. That when it's exposure happening of perversion in one area, it starts to expose other areas, right? And when people start to come in unity in one area, we even see this with protests. Protests start here, it sprouts out. These things happen even globally. It's a movement, it is a pattern, right? And so when we see this happen coming up in the future for things that are going to come to pass, it's really important that we all understand the importance of unity. And I'm saying this clearly because I feel like we already know this logically, but to practice it is what I want to get into our action, to that our feet match up with what we know in our mind. or what we know cognitively, is that you are on the right side of the fence when it happens. That you are a part of the solution and you're not a part of the problem. That you are not helping destruction and death to come to pass, but instead you are the one that's spreading light and driving all of us towards salvation and life, right? That's why we got to be doing our job there. And so I think it's so important that not only did they have a plan, but they did it in unity and they protected each other. I think the other part that I would bring out is that they trusted each other. They had to trust each other. And this is something that we really all need healing around, and trusting each other as a people. My goodness. They had to trust that Isaac was going to not actually kill Clone Fontaine. And then Isaac had to actually trust that what they was telling him was the truth. Everybody played their part, even when Isaac was practicing his lines with the broke leg guy. Like, everybody played their part. And so I love that so much. And this is what happens when a plan comes together, is everybody does their job. Everybody trusts that you are going to do what you're supposed to do. If you say you're going to bring water and I say I'm going to bring the cups, now everybody can have a cup of water if we both do our parts. Like, this is why unity, planning, and follow through, it all comes together, and we got to trust each other and have each other's back. Because I mean, come on, y'all, like, stop all this fighting. It's not cute.
It's not fighting the wrong thing.
That part.
Yeah.
That part. Okay, so what are some things that you would like to leave the listeners with before we close up for this conversation, for part 1 of They Clone Tyrone, with hopes that we see a part 2 come out?
Ooh. Oh, my one thing from earlier that I was going to say for part 2, what if real Fontaine ain't real Fontaine? Oh.
Girl,
I can't take another Fontaine.
If an original
So
to the second power come through, I'm gonna be mad.
Okay.
I mean, what if Fontaine is not actually black?
Oh, yep.
I'm not ready, y'all. Please don't write that in. We're not ready.
Or if the original Fontaine is actually Tyrone, because I'm looking like, we don't like. Remember, we fight.
Who is Tyrone? Well, Tyrone is the LA Tyrone. LA.
Right. LA, right. But what if his little person up underneath the city? What if the original person is his brother? And all this time,
the
girl,
brother. Listen, I thought it was the brother
Ronald.
This whole time. I thought the brother somehow didn't die, or something came back to life and decided to hide in the cut and just develop all his plans. I thought it was the brother to begin with, but then it obviously wasn't. But you never know. They could change it and go multiple ways.
It could go multiple ways. Listen,
have us in a little think room, little writer.
Yeah, reach out to us. Our information is gonna be right there in the description. Let us know. Speaking of, Felicia, what's your Instagram?
My Instagram is Feefmay, FEEF_MAY.
Yes, so please make sure you go ahead and give her a follow. And Aareyon?
I'm that girl Aareyon. I think there's an underscore in there somewhere. I should look at that.
I feel like it is too. I'm gonna put it in the description box.
Yeah, do that. I never remember that. Yeah, that girl _ Aary, AARY.
Yes, so y'all go ahead and give them a follow. Y'all, contact us. We'll be happy to join the planning, or even just conversations around things that can come out of part 2, 3, 4. Just let us know, series, and need any of us to join a role. I'm available. Nonetheless, excellent work for the first one, and I really hope for those of you who stuck in here with stuck in here with us surrounding this conversation, that you join us in the chat and talking about it and sharing with others. Y'all already know, I feel like you don't keep all the good stuff to yourself. Share. We're gonna do something about this, and it all starts with awareness. We saw this in the movie. Again, if you didn't watch the movie, go watch it. I'm gonna watch it again and see, because there's some things that both of you brought out that I missed or didn't even see to that depth. I even remember there was a sign of a white guy and it said something about unity, and this is when they were in the revolt. Like, even the message that your opposer understands the power of unity. So this is why they have so many tactics in place to break up that unity. Go ahead, Felicia, what were you gonna say?
There's one scene where they finally go underneath the church, and this is after they get the suits, and they're walking down the hallway to where the incubator is, where all the clones are, and you hear in the background, "Bringing America Together."
Come on, good ears. Good ears.
And it sounds like a recording, sounds like if like a radio station, if you will. And I mean, we could talk about this and we could go into it, but I'm not gonna go into it. It's very indicative of a little Trump nation, which, okay, cool. If that's where you swing, that's where you swing. But man, I was like, wow, that
See,
is
it's so good, y'all. They can't even stop. They can't
about
even stop.
more because it made me think about the conversation that, you know, Senior Fontaine was having with Junior. We gonna say that that he was having with him, and he was talking about the evolution of like what he was trying to get them to, you know, eliminating our race. And he talked about the hair part, which was why we saw in the first underground situation in the trap house. The first guy that was down there, and he was like, "Oh, we're everywhere." Which I was thinking that all of these people that were like the heads of like the DJ and all of those were those experiments that he had did on those people. So like Black people that he had transitioned to this, but and he said the hair is the most stubborn part. He said, "I can't figure out the hair part. This hair part is stubborn." So while we saw all the white men with these afros, was not. I think it was a picture of assimilation, but it was also a picture of how he had gotten these people to this kind of like close to end result. And then now he's putting them over these different businesses because they're reached the full maturation of this cloning or this processing.
Wow.
That come on, teacher. When the educator hits the room, oh my goodness, y'all. See, it's conversations like this that we're going to be having at the Battlefield Conference. So if y'all hadn't already gotten your ticket, go on and get your ticket, go on and get your group together. I will even have the information in the description and email address. You can email info@drblaire.net or admin@drblaire.net if you have a group of 5 people or more, and we can offer a group rate because that's not specifically on the website, but all the information is in the description box. I will put it on the screen here as well. www.drblaire.net/events/ I always forget the // so just pay attention to what's on the screen because, honey, I don't know. But go ahead and head over to the website because we will have conversations like this at the conference. This is addressing what is going on as it pertains to our mental health as a people. This is not just individually, but as a people. And so we will be releasing tactics around mental and spiritual health and showing you how they pair. We'll have resources on site. And for those who were there last year, you have a little bit of a taste of what you will get from what you experienced last year. But let me tell you, we're going up higher. We're going even deeper. And I am looking into holding a open forum or workshop where we can have conversations about how mind control and church hurt and things like that have influenced the church specifically. So keep an eye out, and y'all be in prayer so that those plans can come together and that I get the right people and resources that are willing to help for that to come together. Because I believe that the conversation that we're having just with the 3 of us here, and I know that y'all are, participating virtually. My hope is that we all can get into a physical space and have conversations like this, because we really have to continue to break down these barriers and work on healing and exposing these tactics in which have been in play for centuries. So we're going to close up here. I thank you both so much for your contribution to this conversation. This was amazing. I know that we can continue. I see both of y'all kind of sitting on the edge of your seat because you got more that we can talk about, but we're not going to record it. So if you want to hear more, y'all let us know. And maybe we can even bring in an element of this conversation into one of the events that's coming up really soon. And we can have an in-person conversation. The millennials and everybody can come together and talk about this, because there is even so much more that I believe we can pull out of They Clone Tyrone, or even movies that are comparable and shows that are comparable, and even real life initiatives that are at play right now. Some of that stuff is not really to be putting on the internet and are just better for in-person conversations. So if you're interested, I need you to reach out to me. I'm gonna even throw them in the mix. Reach out to them and let them know if you're interested as well, and we can put something together and join forces and make it happen. With that being said, I love you both. I thank you, and I appreciate both of you taking the time and the effort to having this conversation with myself and our entire community. So thank you.
Thank you. This was great.
Wonderful. Oh, I have to let you know before you go, If you hadn't already grabbed your ticket for the Battlefield Conference, go ahead and do it. We're going to have conversations similar to this at the conference. And if you were there last year, then you already know a little bit of taste of what we're going to be doing, but we're going to step it up a notch. We have plans in place that are here to not only help our community, but also so that you have a quality experience. So we're expecting to see you there. And as I mentioned, make sure that you are reaching out to me, information there in the chat, or not the chat, the description box. If you have a desire to bring a group and you are interested in a group rate, information is down below in the description box. Hope to see you all there. Like, comment, subscribe, and share with your community, and be sure to share with someone specific to learn more about the depth that's in this movie. And if you hadn't watched it, go ahead and watch it. They Clone Tyrone on Netflix. And of course, before you go, remember, if I'm great and you're great, then we're a great community.